AI, agency, and patency. AI is often used to make recommendations that have moral import, for instance, the Compass program, and is often given a certain amount of autonomy. Think of self-driving cars. Kuckelberg asked whether that autonomy should go beyond making recommendations to acting on those recommendations. That is, should AI be allowed to make moral decisions on its own? Some might say that we already let AI do that, citing the use of autonomous vehicles. There is a difference. Autonomous vehicles, when behaving as we expect them to, act as most human beings do when faced with moral dilemmas, similar to those posed by the trolley problem. They put their energies into avoiding any moral decision. For instance, when asked whether to throw the switch to save 5 people at the cost of 1, some refuse on the basis that the 5 on the main track will surely move out of the way, or that the trolley has some sort of warning or fail-safe. When asked whether one should throw off a very large person off the overpass to stop the trolley, most would say either that not even a very large human could possibly stop the trolley, or that there is no way that anyone could throw such a person off an overpass. So, let us assume that you and your autonomous vehicle are going down the road when suddenly a child jumps in your path. It's a narrow lane with walls on either side. There is not enough distance to stop without almost certainly killing the child, and swerving will almost certainly kill you as you slam into a wall. Remember, the AI in autonomous vehicles is designed to avoid such issues. They are designed so that these situations don't come up in the first place. However, no AI would be able to anticipate every situation. Let us also assume that an AI would react much faster than a human would. Given that, using the moral frameworks we've studied, should an AI be allowed to choose between the driver, and presumably itself, or the child? We'll discuss that question in class, but think about it for now. Perhaps there is something particular about being human that AIs don't currently possess. What is it about humans that make us moral agents? Following Kuckelberg, and Aristotle for that matter, we can break this down as follows: the ability to act, deliberative reasoning, the ability to take responsibility for one's actions, and awareness of the actions and its consequences. Let us take it for granted that an AI has the ability to act, so we'll pass on that. Deliberative reasoning is a bit more difficult because it assumes that one might act differently after having deliberated than if one hadn't thought through things at all. For instance, you are up late and you're starting to fade out. You start to reach out for an energy drink. However, after giving it some thought, you might refrain from drinking that beverage and go to bed. Deliberation in human beings requires not only intelligence, but consciousness. Now, maybe we can develop an AI that doesn't require consciousness to deliberate, but we haven't yet, and we are asking about whether we should turn over moral decision-making to AIs as they currently exist or would exist in the near term. Deliberation raises another issue. For one to be a moral agent, one must take responsibility for one's actions, to own up to what one has done. This requires something called a theory of mind. In the case of human beings, it is that we operate as if we each act as a unified subject, an I or an ego, rather than a collection of parts that just happen to work well together. If there is such a unified subject that is distinct from muscles, brains, and so on, this I exists within consciousness. So it looks as if an AI, as currently constituted, cannot be considered a moral agent. One can hold the programming, the sensors, the braking system, and so on instrumentally responsible, but moral responsibility falls back on programmers, hardware engineers, mechanical engineers, and so on. However, as Goldberg points out, that pushing moral responsibility back on humans may be difficult because embedded AI is very complicated and knowing how all the parts interact cannot always be predicted. That leaves the last consideration. To be held morally responsible, one must be aware of one's actions and its consequences. Sometimes not even moral agents can do this, and since ought implies can, one cannot be held responsible for that which one cannot be expected to anticipate. How do we determine what AI designers should be able to anticipate? Is the inability to anticipate in itself such a risk that we should proceed with AI development with extreme caution until we are in a position to anticipate outcomes more clearly? David Hume and Adam Smith may have been onto something in their theories of moral sentiment. Much of our moral deliberation is shaped by our ability to sympathize and empathize. We are moved by sentiment, and sentiment does factor in to our moral deliberations. In fact, it may well be that one of the things that holds back Sandel's goal of the common good is that tribalism, treating those with whom we disagree as alien or the enemy, makes empathizing across these tribal lines difficult, if not impossible. If an AI were in a position to make moral decisions for humans, it would seem that it would have to empathize with humans. Whether an AI could empathize with humans is a bit of a problem because of what we know about how humans empathize with each other. We are cued not only into words and ideas, but how those ideas are delivered. We process the body language of other people. We relate these back to our feelings. It isn't so much that Kant's categorical imperative is a universal, but it is a felt reality. We are wired to react emotionally where our feelings appear to match those of those around us. We are very good at reading other humans, but not so good at reading the emotional states of non-humans. The other intelligences, whether natural or artificial, are often not analogs to our own inner states. AI would have the same difficulties. Let us move on to moral patency. All patency means is that something is an object of moral concern or worth. Remember that posthumanists want to extend innate meaning and value beyond the human sphere. So, for instance, it might be wrong to kick one's dog. But why might that be? One might say that it is because doing so inflicts pain, and inflicting pain is wrong. You can see an argument for moral sentiment here. We have empathy for the dog. But what about an AI? If an AI has no feelings, is it of any moral worth or consideration at all? Kuckelberg has brought up the example of companion robots in nursing homes, where the residents treat them as if they were members of their family. Would empathy work here, or are we just anthropomorphizing? My son has his house set up so that Alexa can do things such as turning lights on and off and things of that nature. My wife habitually thanks Alexa when the AI performs one of these tasks. She is not alone in this. But it is one thing to be grateful for small conveniences, But why should we thank Alexa or any AI any more than we might thank a light switch for functioning as designed? Alexa, or rather Alexa's programmers, are manipulating our emotions. So, empathy has its limits in determining moral patency. One could go in the direction of Kant. Kant maintained that we should not be cruel to animals because cruelty coarsens character, and this coarseness would eventually transfer to our treatment of other human beings. That is, we should treat non moral agents well in an instrumental sense for the sake of other moral agents, not in any innate sense. One could extend Kant's point to embodied AIs. If we mistreat an AI that displays human behavior, we are again coarsening our own character. This wouldn't give the AI, or a dog for that matter, moral patency, but it would constrain human behavior. The problem with Kant is that animals do seem to have some sort of moral worth, so why not an AI? Something to be considered for class. Can the moral frameworks that we've looked at in Sandel be translated into a post-humanist fashion? Think about how one might refashion utilitarianism, libertarianism, Kant or Rawls, and Aristotle as post-humanist ethical theories. Now, let us go back to the trolley problem one last time. Let us assume that you see a trolley heading down the tracks. You look down its path and see 5 dogs on a single leash, and the leash is caught in the tracks. There is a switch you can use to move the trolley to the side rail. If you do nothing, the dogs will die. Of course, on the other side, on the side rail, there is a single worker, oblivious to what is going on. So, do you throw the switch? It seems that in extending moral patency, we have made ethics that much more complicated. We'll also take a look at that issue in class.